welcome back to Donington Park for day 2 of the first race weekend in the GT Cup Championship 2022. And guess what? It's nearly race time. We're going to go straight into the sprint. It was a fantastic day of racing. On pole position, brand new driver Ian Logie, just firing up his engines. How good does that feel? We've got our reigning champion here just next to him in number 2, and Simon Orange in number 3. Are you ready? I know Mark Werrell is. Let's go racing, Mark.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, great to see the cars back on the grid again. Mo Ritson's joining me in commentary again today. Thanks for joining us yesterday, Mo. You enjoyed it so much. You're back.
I know, back again for another day. It's a new experience. I'm absolutely loving it, so thank you for having me.
An absolute pleasure, an absolute pleasure. We will guide you through the grid. It's a huge grid of cars. We have lost one car from yesterday, Peter Jackson, who unfortunately his Aston Martin has had to withdraw from this one. The FF Corse Ferrari, which we didn't see yesterday in any of the racing because it had electrical issues, is out today. And there's an issue with the TechServe car that we'll tell you about with a change of driver. But let's guide you through the grid. There's no graphic, unfortunately, but I can guide you through the grid. It's the Ram Racing number 16 Mercedes, Ian Logie, the Scotsman, that lines up on pole position, and alongside is the reigning champion, number 8, ABBA Racing, and Richard Neary. Row 2 of the grid, it's the McLaren number 67 of Simon Orange, alongside another McLaren, the number 66 car of Morgan Tilbrook. Row 3 of the grid, 23, another McLaren, Greystone GT, Ian Campbell, alongside the Ram Racing number 11, light green Mercedes of Mike Price. And row 4 of the grid, it's the first of the cars that isn't in Group GT3, it's the Group GTO leading Radical RXC, number 7 of Ben Dimmock, alongside the 33 GCAT Racing Porsche of Seamus Jennings. Row 5 of the grid, 44, Paddock Motorsport, Steve Ruston, and number 9, the Top Cats Racing Lamborghini of Warren Gilbert. That will be the lead car in Group GTC by the look of things. And row 6 of the grid, it is 247, Lucky Kira, alongside 61, which is John Dillon. Row 7, 13, James Webb lines up alongside 28, which is Paul Bailey. Row 8 is number 10, which is Chris Murphy, alongside 38, which is Sasha Kaked. Row 9 is 56, Roy Millington, who only has done a few laps all weekend at the wheel of this Ferrari. Alongside him is number 39, which is the first of the Group GTH cars, which is the Trax Focus Mercedes of James Kell. And row 10 is number 50, Beluga Motorsport. We were awaiting the starting driver for that one, James Wallace or Sam Mayer-Lachlan, alongside number 6, which is Alex Stevenson. Row 11, 69, is going to be car number 69 rather, is going to be Stephen Walton, and alongside him is going to be 17, and then the rest I'll do in number order: 78 and 96, 52 and 26, 3 and 14, 77 and 25, 80 and 91, 51 and 30, and at the back is number 4. The reason a TechServe Mercedes is at the back is that Graham Tilley is suffering with COVID from yesterday, so Mark Sampson has been drafted in last minute to share in the pit stop race later on with Will Tregurtha. The two of those will be racing in a Bentley and British GT, so Mark is in at the deep end in this one. He's not driven the car around here. He's not driven the car until 3 laps over the lunch break just to qualify for the race, so we wish him well. So 2 Mercedes on the front row of the grid, Ram Racing's Ian Logie alongside ABBA Racing's Richard Neary, the 2 Mercs side by side, the 2 McLarens on row 2 of the grid. The 25-minute sprint race gets underway, and it's a great start from Ian Logie for the lead of the race. There's contact further back as Mike Price gets across the front of Ian Campbell. The Ram Racing Mercedes slithers down the concrete wall and comes to a halt on the entrance towards Redgate Corner with damage to the rear of that car, but the car I think is safe enough out of the way so as to not cause a problem. But it is Mercedes 1 and 2, McLaren 3 and 4, and that little bit of squeezing just pitched Mike Price in towards the wall there, Mo.
Yeah, it looked very close there. You know, these race starts, especially with that one in GT3, it's very easy to get caught up. So yeah, hopefully it's nothing too terminal for them and they can be back out later on today. But yeah, it looked like the rear left suspension damage there potentially. But you know, it's so easy, and sometimes in those situations you can just get pinched up between another car because you know ultimately everyone's fighting to get conditions.
Ever looking for positives out of negatives. At least it was sort of an impact and then a scrape along the wall. It wasn't a big thump into the wall, so that's lessened the damage, albeit still work to do for the team.
Exactly. You know, that's the kind of, you know, the best outcome essentially. You know, of course nobody wants it to happen at all, but in the grand scheme of things it could have been much worse. And something like the corner of the suspension, they can hopefully get that sorted pretty quickly.
So over the start-finish line, first lap chalked into the book. Ian Logie leads by 0.4 of a second from Richard Neary in second place. It's Simon Orange that's there in third place, Morgan Tilbrook in fourth as a result of the shenanigans. Seamus Jennings in the GCAT Racing Porsche is up from 8th to 5th position now at the wheel of the white car with its blue flashes, and also similar position gains, if not more, for John Dillon, who started 12th. He was given a 3-place grid drop because of an incident he was deemed to be the culprit in yesterday's race, so he lost 3 places from his qualifying position and has dropped down into 12th position on the grid and has now made it up to 6th. But you can see the safety car is on standby. It looks as though it is going to peel its way out of the pit lane and pick up the race leader. I think everybody else came through on that lap, so it can only be for the unfortunate car that ended up at Mike Price in the barriers there, albeit there is another car. I didn't see Chris Murphy's Porsche come through at the end of the first lap, so maybe there's a problem with that one as well, that being the number 10 car.
Yeah, you know, on a first lap like that, it can get very busy very quickly, as we've seen. You know, so it's, I think we've got off fairly clean in, you know, in the grand scheme of things. With the car spinning at the you know, on the start, it can cause, you know, they can easily get collected, and thankfully that didn't happen. But you know, this, hopefully, like we had yesterday, the safety car hopefully will calm down the pack a little bit, and everyone can settle into their rhythm again once we go green.
How frustrating is it as a driver when you want to get on with the race and straight away out comes the safety car, particularly someone like Ian Lockey, who had got a bit of a break and had got daylight between himself and people behind. You've got to do it all again. Exactly.
Yeah, it's annoying. You know, it's annoying because, you know, you really want to get some space, but at the same time, you know, the safety cars are there for a reason.
I just spotted where the Porsche was as well. It was through the Robert chicane. Just spotted it in the gravel trap there. So it's two separate incidents. And I would say it's less so Mike Price's that's brought out the safety car, because that's in a reasonably safe position, whereas a car in the gravel trap at the Robert chicane is not in a safe position.
Exactly. You know, if another car goes off there, it's not going to be good. So it's, you know, they've made the right call with the safety cars. They always do. It's, you know, you can see there it's well and truly beached in the gravel there. So, you know, hopefully it won't take too long. You know, the recovery systems here are pretty clean, as we can see there. They're recovering Mike Price's car as well. So it's, you know, the guys here are quick. MSV are really good with recovering cars, so hopefully we can go racing again soon. But you know, like we had yesterday in the pit stop race, it was a bit chaotic at starts, but then it seemed to calm down. So let's hope we have the same again.
Yeah, very full grid of cars there. Heading through shot is Mark Sampson, the red and Dayglow yellow livery Texserve Mercedes, which poor old Graham Tilley has had to forego the driving seat in for this one. But Mark doing a good job in the early stages. They literally did 3 laps behind the pace car at lunch break to qualify this car to enable him to line up on the grid, and that Mercedes has already picked up a couple of places in a track he knows well, but a car which will be, I would imagine, totally alien to him. So clearing up being done, the errant Porsche of Chris Murphy, who was the overall champion back in 2018 when he was partnered up with Adam Murphy in the Whitebridge Motorsport Aston Martin GT4. It's his Porsche that has gone in towards the gravel trap, the Motus One stroke Team Hard prepare car. That's just where the pack is working its way through and past now, so we'll have to wait and see as to how that recovery is going on. And then once we have got the Porsche out of harm's way, I think we'll be good to go in this one.
Yeah, let's hope we can go green again very soon, because, you know, we're set for a really good race here. It's, you know, as we can see there, there's so many GT4 cars, or GTH cars, that I'm sure there'll be a great battle there. And likewise with the GT3s, we saw some really close racing, which, you know, everyone loves to see. So, you know, I think we're set for a really good race ahead of us.
I think we might be another few laps behind the safety car. And the reason I'm saying that is because on the left of your screen there, you can see the telehandler. It's dealt with Mike Price's car, but I now think that same telehandler going up the grass there is going to have to go all the way up towards Roberts, deal with that car there, and even when it's dealt with that car, it then needs to, I think, go back towards Redgate to position itself in at the back of the snatch gap at Redgate. So I think we're going to be at least another couple of laps behind the safety car here, which is ever more frustrating. Let's just pick out the group leaders then whilst we remain behind safety car, and the marshals and the course operatives doing all of their hard work to try and get the circuit clear so that we can go racing once more. Leading the race overall and leading Group GT3 for the GT3 homologated cars is Ian Lockey, the number 16 car, dark blue and pink is the coloration of it. In second place in the race, and also second in Group GT3, is number 8 Richard Neary. Third in the race and third in GT3. GT3 cars occupy the top 7 places, by the way, at the moment. So third is number 67 Jason Orange in his McLaren, and fourth is another McLaren, a 720S, again in the hands of 66 Morgan Tilbrook. The GCAT Racing Porsche 911, number 33 of the Northern Irishman, Seamus Jennings, is there in 5th position. 6th place is the first of the Lamborghinis that we've got, which is John Dillon. Remember, he suffered that 3-place grid drop and was already up from 12th to 6th after just a couple of laps of racing before the safety car came out. And 7th place is another McLaren. It's the number 23 car of Ian Campbell. 8th place is the first car that's not a GT3 that we see. That is the GTO leader at this stage. Group GTO being led by the number 7 Radical RXC in the hands of Ben Dimmock. Was the starter driver we were notified for this race, and completing the top 9 is another group leader. The group GTC leader is car number 9 in 9th position, which is Warren Gilbert at the wheel of the Super Trofeo specification Top Cats Racing Lamborghini. And the top 10 is completed by car number 28, which is Paul Bailey at the wheel of the fairly unique, very rare McLaren MP412C Can-Am. There are only 3 ever Can-Am spec MP412Cs built, really, and that is one of the 3. So that gives you the top 10. What it doesn't give you is who is leading Group GT8 earlier on, which is for the GT4 homologated cars, and the leading car in that is car number 39, which is largely sort of green and orange and black, the Mercedes AMG GT4, and that is the number 39 car, which for this race is going to be James Kell that is leading that one. But Group GTH is the class that you raced in last year, Mo. It was competitive last year. Crumbs, it's even more competitive this year, isn't it? 18 cars entered this weekend just for that group.
It's crazy. It's great to see as well, you know, like we said yesterday, the championship and the GTH class is just growing from strength to strength, so it's really good to see, you know. It's nice to see, you know, the sharp end of the field in that class are really close. Like this, you know, the qualifying this morning was so close, you know, and it's, you know, credit to the balance of performance guy, you know, the guys who were, you know, working at the balance of performance, because to have those Mercedes and the Porsches and the McLarens so evenly matched it's great to see.
I always liken being the man in charge of balance of performance is a bit like being a football referee for children's football, isn't it? You're never going to please everybody all of the time, and it's a thankless task, isn't it, really? But they do get it right. Exactly,
you know, yeah, great analogy there. Is, you know, it's a hard thing to get right, but when you get it right, it's great. You know, it benefits everyone. You know, there's, like you said, there's always going to be someone who's not too happy.
So lights are out on the safety car. We saw the Porsche depositing whatever remaining gravel was underneath it onto the track, so that might just cause a few little marbles here and there, but we're about to get things underway. Ian Logie leading the pack away. We know Richard Neary's a good restarter behind the safety cars. We saw that yesterday when he was out front and leading, but it's not a bad restart from him. He is hot on the bumper of Ian Logie as they charge their way up towards Redgate Corner. The 2 Mercedes nose to tail going in towards the corner. The door's always going to close, so Richard Neary can't quite squeeze his way through, and before they've even got the race back underway, there's contact by the look of things. One of the Greystone McLarens having a come together with the number 52 Veluga Motorsport Chris Bates driven Porsche Cayman. That car in the gravel trap, head on position, not a safe place, could be going back to safety car if we're not careful now.
It looks likely, you know, a car there, it's a heavy braking zone, it's a very, you know, you're approaching that corner at such a high speed that's directly where you're going to go if the corner's not going to go right. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a safety car, but he didn't look like he's got himself dug into the gravel yet. You know, it's very easy to get, especially in a rear wheel drive car, to get stuck in the gravel, so we haven't seen, but potentially he's maybe got out of the gravel and hopefully he can maybe carry on. But I think that McLaren's definitely seen the end of this race.
Yeah, that McLaren's smoking away there. That's Mark Hopton's car that by the look of things has had damage to the front of it, which has damaged the radiator ducts, and that might be what's deposited that number 52 Veluga Motorsport Porsche Cayman into the gravel trap that we can see at Roberts Chicane. So yellow flags just localised at that part of the circuit at the moment. 15 minutes remaining. Here comes the Group GTO leading car, which is Ben Dimmock, drawing himself alongside and in front of Seamus Jennings there at the wheel of the GCAT Racing Porsche. So that's a change for 6th and 7th. But it doesn't alter the point scoring position of the Radical because it is in a different group. It is in Group GTO, but Seamus Jennings now has got 2 further Lambos queuing up behind him, the first of which is the GT3 car of John Dillon, the next of which will be the Group GTC leading number 9 car in the hands of Warren Gilbert. And in the meantime, good battles going on in Group GTH as well.
It's really close. You know, there's 3 McLarens and a Mercedes, or 2 Mercedes in of course, different classes, but you know, once again, like we were saying, it comes back to that balance of performance. You can see there's, you know, a McLaren and Mercedes, they look very different cars, and you know, they are very different cars, but ultimately they're battling together, and you can see the Ginettas getting involved as well. So it's, you know, once again, you know, GTH class is thriving.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom Roach is the one that's at the front of this queue, a former Mazda MX-5 champion. We've seen him racing briefly in the British GT Championship, and also more recently has done Porsche Carrera Cup. And off has gone Richard Neary. That's coming out of the Roberts Chicane, where he's clearly had a problem and either launched himself over a curb or the car's got unsettled on the exit. He's spun to the inside. He's avoided collecting anything, Well, that's a very uncharacteristic mistake there from Richard Neary. The car looks undamaged though. He'll continue in the race. But that's any chance of a result pretty much gone.
Yeah, it's so easily done there. You know, the exit of that corner, you're coming slightly uphill, and the track almost drops away from you on the exit as well. So it's really hard to get right, even in a GT4. So I can't imagine what it's like in GT3s. But you know, we saw people yesterday struggling there, getting oversteer on exit. So you know, I think I'm sure you won't be the only one who's experienced a bit of a moment there.
I mean, I know the tyre is different to last year, but Pirelli providing the control tyre for the GT Cup Championship again this year. We are going safety car again by the look of the flags that are around the circuit. There is the safety car on standby, so we'll talk a bit more about the tyre. I'm not sure how much pre-season testing you've done on this new tyre as yet, but if you have, is it different to the outgoing tyre? Yeah,
it's a very different compound, and I think a lot of the teams here and drivers are still trying to get our heads around what this tyre likes and doesn't like. So far we found it takes a bit longer to switch on and get the heat into the tyre.
Is the drop off the same?
Drop off, it drops off a bit nicer than the previous tyre. Previously you could do 2 laps in qualifying, and then after that you would feel the drop off massively. But this year we've seen so far that you can do maybe 4 or 5 laps before the tyre really has its initial drop off, and then it plateaus quite nicely after that. So it's been a bit of a challenge to get the heat into it and to get the most out of the tyre. But I think a lot of teams here are finally getting their heads around it, and the process of even warming up the tyre is different this year. We don't really weave a whole lot. It's all done through the brakes. You're riding the brakes and just using heavy braking to basically heat up the tyre from the inside out to avoid graining.
And again, and this is where I'm always enormously intrigued. You're talking about the fact that tyre is reacting differently and it gets switched on in a different way. It takes longer. So going back to qualifying this morning, this grid was established based on a 10-minute qualifying session. So if that tyre is taking longer to switch on in what is only a 10-minute session, that ultimately potentially affects not just the starting tyre pressure for that qualifying session, but it might affect the way that you set the camber on the car and things like that as well, to get the tyre to work differently.
Exactly. I think I think everyone will be experiencing a very different qualifying setup to a race setup.
Yep.
Because you've got to get those tyres switched on as soon as you can, because 4 laps in qualifying, by the time the tyre is warm at the end of that 4th lap, your qualifying session's almost over, and that's without a red flag. So it's been a challenge. There's been a lot of new kind of curveballs thrown at the teams this year with this new tyre compound, and I think everyone will work out how to get it to work. But
it's a level playing field. Everybody's got the same amount to learn about it.
Exactly. Everyone's in the same boat, and that's the nice thing. And it's still credit to Pirelli for having these tyres that They run well, they're really good tyres. It's the same compound across the GT4s and the GT3s and all the other classes. So it's credit to them for developing this tyre.
And while we're talking about the Pirelli tyre, just to confirm, if you're not familiar with GT Cup, they are restricted to the amount of tyres that you can run. You are restricted to 3 sets of slick tyres per day. So that's for free practice, for qualifying, for the sprint race and for the pit stop race. It's fair to say that not necessarily every team will use that allocation of 3 sets. Some choose to, others for either cost reasons or feeling as though it's not going to impact their performance, don't bother.
Exactly. That's the nice thing about GT Cup, is you've got your allocated tyres, and you're free to choose whether you use them or not. And like you said, if a team wants to save a set of tyres for another weekend or for testing, they can do that.
How do they know then? The rhetorical question, because I know the answer. So how do Pirelli and the organisers know that you've only used 3 sets of tyres, Mo?
So I believe there's barcodes on the tyres, and it's all scanned through on a system that relays back to Pirelli, and that's how they basically register. You're almost it's like when you go shopping. You're saying, right, I've allocated these tyres to this car, we've used them. That barcode's scanned, and Pirelli are able to see that barcode has been allocated to a car and those tyres are being used. So it's a good system. It's a system that I've only really become familiar with in the last few days, to be totally honest. But it's a great system, and it seems to work.
Many championships use it. Lots of different tyre manufacturers use it. Yeah, you have to register your tyres and declare them, and they're all scanned and barcoded. And you can't step away from that. There is obviously within the regulations the facility to have an extra tyre or 2 should you end up with punctures and things or car damage over the weekend. That is a consideration, but you almost have to justify why you need those extra tyres or have to use used ones. We're about to go green once more. 9 minutes remaining of this sprint race. Ian Logie was out of the box quickly for this one, and a little bit slower to get restarted was Simon Orange, who now in 2nd place is coming under pressure from the charging McLaren in the hands of Morgan Tilbrook as they head up towards Redgate Corner. The rest of the field all just filing their way over the start-finish line. There's no overtaking until you reach the control line for a the start. You can be alongside the car, but you can't have your nose ahead and overtake before the start-finish line. There is number 26, which is Tom Roach, coming under enormous pressure from the 69 car of Stephen Walton. And the second of the Make Happen Racing Mercedes is behind that as well, which is 96, which is John Curry. So both of those ganging up on the Paddock Motorsport McLaren that lies ahead.
Yeah, it looks very close there. You know, Tom's been doing really well this weekend, and it's good to see him in the mix with the other GT4s. You know, he's got a lot of experience in a variety of cars, and I think the McLaren's been a new experience for him, like it is with any driver who jumps into one of those cars. So yeah, hopefully we can see some good racing again, because I believe he had a really good battle at the end of last race of the pit stop race yesterday.
He did. He was having a cracking battle. Yeah, I mean, Tom would have driven a McLaren 570S before, because his company Car Chase Heroes have one on their experience days if you want to book to drive one, but I don't think he's raced one before. Now this is Mark Sampson. Remember, off the back of the grid, not having driven the car, the red number 4 car coming under pressure from Richard Neary, trying to recover after his moment coming out of the Robert chicane. So Richard Neary, more than used to a Mercedes AMG GT3, putting Mark Sampson, who I think is having his first ever racing one, under pressure. And we've still, by the look of things, got Morgan Tilbrook hassling cars. But now he's falling behind Ian Campbell, because the number 23 car from Greystone GT has made it through. So it's still McLaren's 2nd, 3rd and 4th, but Tilbrook's now dropped from 3rd down into 4th place as the 23 car goes through. Yeah,
it just shows how easily it can change. You know, things can change, you know, so quickly in this championship. You know, we've seen the safety car go in, and everyone's got racing again, and it brings everyone back, you know, closer together again. So yeah, it's good to see a good battle, and the McLarens look great racing together.
The one good thing, we were looking back at Mark Sampson and Richard Neary fighting the way. The one good thing at the moment is, ahead of those two cars is the leading car in Group GTH. So that being James Kelly's got 2 GT3 cars behind him, acting as a buffer at the moment. So that's really, really good news for him. Over the start-finish line comes the race leader. Is gapped first to second down? Yes, it is, because Simon Orange has just posted the fastest lap of the race that we've seen so far. 1 minute 5.040. Now, 1 minute 5.040 is an important lap time potentially for Simon Orange, Mo, because fastest laps from this race give us the grid for the pit stop race, so the car in 2nd place could be heading towards pole later on today.
Exactly, it's so key, and especially at this, I'm surprised it's this point in the race. It's quite late on, so the tyres are definitely not going to be at their peak. You know, like we were saying before, the you know, the tyres don't have as significant of a drop off, especially in the GT4s. I don't know if that's the same for the GT3s.
2 safety cars has helped, hasn't it, as well?
Exactly. There's been very little full speed running, so the tyres are still going to be fairly fresh, and that's great to see that he's putting in the laps, and it looks like the gap's closing maybe a little bit again.
It is. Well, through the first sector of this lap, Simon Orange was a couple of tenths quicker than the Mercedes ahead of Ian Loggy. Through the second sector, Ian Loggy responds and is about 7 1,000ths of a second quicker, so not a great deal, but I think Simon Orange here is going to start to ask a few questions of Ian Loggy. 2 of them over the start-finish line. The gap comes down as Simon Orange posts another new fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 4.8 compared to the 1 minute 4.9 from Ian Loggy. There's nobody else lapping in the 1 minute 4s at the moment, so both of these are pushing each other's hard. Now, Ian Loggy knows the Mercedes well. Simon Orange, who has gone so well in this championship in the past, and of course is a former champion in the GT Cup, is not really used to the McLaren 720S GT3. He was racing a Ginetta last year, but I know they've done a lot of testing in this car, and seat time's always important.
Massively. It plays such a big role, especially in the world of motorsport now, where, you know, there's a lot of drivers spending a lot of money going and getting the seat time that they can get, so it's you know, it's vital, and I think we've got a spin there as well coming out the last corner. But it looks like he's got going again, but as you see, 3 wide into turn 1, that sums up GTH for you there. It's only in GTH and GT Cup would you get that.
It's John Curry trying to put the orange McLaren of Patrick Collins under pressure, whilst there behind, I think, was Tom Roach was in again at the wheel of one of the Paddock Motorsport cars. Just ahead of them, there's more squabbles going on as well. So Group GTH is going to be like this all season. Absolutely fantastic stuff to see, and so far it's all been fairly neat and tidy. In towards the Robert chicane, this is number 61, John Dillon, trying to hunt down the GCAT Racing Porsche that lies in 6th position ahead. But back to GTH, we briefly saw the class leader there. The race leaders overall, though, heading down in towards the old hairpin. They're on lap number 15 at the moment. Simon Orange has worked hard. He's brought that gap down to 0.3, but now he's in the dirty air, Mo. Exactly.
This is when it gets really difficult to make that final move and to get through. It's especially Ian Loggy, who's got a lot of experience in the Mercedes, like you said before. It's going to be a real test, and as we said again yesterday, the traffic will play a big role. They're going to start coming up, behind some of the GTHs and GTC, a range of cars, and they've really got to work, use the traffic to their advantages, because it's a tool for them. It's the GTHs. They're not intentionally slow. They are just slower cars than the GT3s, but they play a massive role, and you can use them to your advantage, but they can also cause a big loss of time.
Yeah, the ideal situation for Ian Loggy is to get a car between himself and the car behind when they get to a corner. Is he going to try it at Redgate Corner as they get past Chris Murphy? Chris Murphy sees both coming, stays away from the apex, so that was quite vital there for Simon Orange, that he had to clear that traffic before they got towards Redgate Corner. It's the same here as they come down through the Craner curves. They'll need to make sure they can both get past this Group GTH McLaren, which stays out of harm's way. 3 minutes to go, but every time you get past one back marker at this stage of the race, there's another one just up the road.
Exactly. I think we saw the McLaren just catching the gravel a little bit there, but they've both rejoined. But yeah, like you said, it's so vital to get through that traffic as fast as you can and as efficiently as you can, because ultimately it can be the deciding factor in a race. If you ever so slightly too hesitant, passing another race car, it can make all the difference.
And Ian Loggy doesn't very often make mistakes. It was whilst he was trying to pass a back marker yesterday up at Coppice Corner, he tried to get past Lucky Kira's car and get a gap between himself and Marcus Clutton in the pit stop race yesterday. He just washed out as he got to the back marker and put him through the gravel, and he lost the race, didn't he, on that occasion? He won't want that to happen today. He flashes his lights. He can see just up the road there's more traffic to deal with. That will be Charlotte Birch, who is making her debut in the championship this weekend at the wheel of the second of the two Top Cats Racing Lamborghinis. Ben Dimmock, who leads Group GTO, bounces the Radical up through the curbs as he comes through the Roberts chicane. So no matter where you look, there are squabbles going on. It's not surprising, because there were 35 cars on the grid. And hats off to this man as well, Mark Sampson. Late call-up, only got the phone call this morning. He drove 2 hours to get here, qualified the car at lunchtime, and the number 4 Mercedes is working its way up through the order quite strongly. It's up to 13th position now. That's really good, especially in a track this busy at the moment with a relatively short lap. The cars are very condensed, so I'm sure he's been coming across a lot of traffic and had to deal with. And with driving a GT4 like he did last year, it's a whole new ball game. He's now on the giving end of passing through this traffic rather than being on the receiving end. So it's, I'm sure he's got a lot of experience from letting cars past and making himself as predictable as possible. I suppose the frustrating thing for Mark as well, whilst it's been a great drive through the order, he's always been in traffic, so he's not going to set that clean lap time, which is going to affect the car's grid position for the pit stop race. Exactly. It's the painful bit of what do you go for? Do you go for that fastest lap, or do you fight for position like we're seeing here? They are so close together, and they won't be getting very fast laps because they are working through traffic and they're battling, but they've got to be careful that Ian Campbell's not far behind in the Greystone McLaren, and things can all change very quickly if they get caught up in a battle. Yeah, so here they come down through the Craner curves. Patrick Collins at the wheel of the Team Orange McLaren will move out of the way, and moves totally out of the way because he disappears off into the gravel trap to driver's left. So through go the race leaders. The McLaren should hopefully be able to continue. You can see the cloud of dust in the background, but Ian Loggy and Simon Orange will continue. Back onto the track goes Patrick Collins after his little moment there down at the old hairpin. But for Ian Loggy, there is no respite at all. He knows he's got to keep pushing hard. He knows there's more traffic up the road. He will also know, because of course he'll be hearing from the team, as to how long there is to go in this race. So heading on to his final lap, the pressure is there, and these two slowing each other up, which, as you suggested, is bringing Ian Campbell into the mix as well there in third place. He's not too far away in the white and yellow number 23 McLaren. Exactly, it looks like he's within a second now, if not even less. So and equally the Enduro McLaren behind. The top four are all very close, and like we said before, things can change very quickly. It's the last lap, anything can happen. As we can see, there's still a lot of traffic ahead, so this is going to get really interesting now. And it's the back markers that are coming into play again. Past Tim Docker's McLaren, they'll go. It's the next of them is going to be one of the Paddock Motorsport cars, which is the 26 car of Tom Roach, who is just about going to move out of harm's way. And has that given the opportunity for Simon Orange to try and get an overlap on Ian Loggy? Well, it has round the outside up towards Schwantz Curve. If he can make it stick, it gives him the inside line for McLean's corner, and he's got the job done by the look of things. Simon Orange up the inside of Ian Loggy on the final lap of the race to take the lead away. There's still traffic though to deal with, and it's the Make Happen Racing Ginetta, I think, is the next of those that is going to have to be dealt with. But that was a great move from Simon Orange, utilising the back markers through a mixture of the Craner curves and then on the exit of the old hairpin to grab the lead of the race away. And there's not a great deal that Ian Loggy can do about it. He heads in towards Robert Chicane for the final time. You only need to lead one lap, and that's exactly what Simon Orange has done, up towards the checkered flag. Perfect timing to take the race lead and the win. Ian Loggy finishes in second place in the Mercedes. Ian Campbell in third place. Morgan Tilbrook in fourth place. Fantastic racing, but just talk us through that Simon Orange overtake.
That was a pure example of endurance racing and GT racing. You know, the variety of classes can really play a big role, and that was a prime example of, you know, the McLaren using the traffic to its advantage. You know, Ian Loggy got a bit unlucky there with where the traffic was and how it was timed at a relatively high speed corner. There's really not much you can do there because there's only really 1 or 2 lines through that corner. So I think it was a accumulation of different factors from, you know, the back markers being at that place at that time mixed with how the McLaren was able to handle it.
And I've got to say fair play to Ian Loggy as well. With the car coming round your outside on the way up to Schwantzkirch, he could have squeezed in more there, but chose not to.
Exactly.
Yeah, gentlemanly driving, fair driving.
There's loads of respect there. That was a great example of respect between drivers and giving each other racing room while still racing millimetres apart from each other. That's exactly what you want to see.
So the car's still filing their way over the start-finish line after we've seen the top 3 come through. We've also got the winner of Group GTO over the start-finish line, which will be Ben Dimmock in the Radical to claim the winning Group GTO. Group GTC went the way of the black Ferrari in the hands of Lucky Kira, who finished in 10th position. Who won Group GTH in the end? James Kell, as it was for the vast majority of the race at the wheel of the number 39 track-focused Mercedes. So just to confirm then, I'll run you down through the top 10 and pick out all of those winners of the individual groups. Unfortunately, we've not got a graphic that we can bring you, but the race win in round 3 of the championship for GT Cup goes the way of number 67, the McLaren of Simon Orange. Second place was number 16, Ian Loggy in the Mercedes, and third was another McLaren, number 23 of Ian Campbell. Fourth was 66, Morgan Tilbrook in the Enduro Racing McLaren. Fifth was number 61, which is John Dillon in the Lamborghini. In 6th place, it was number 8, the recovering Richard Neary, within 7th place being the first of the non-Group GT3 cars. It was the Group GTO winner, Ben Dimmock in the Radical, who finished in 7th place. 8th place, number 33, Seamus Jennings in the Porsche. 9th place was the car that was second home in Group GTO, the number 28 McLaren MP412C of Paul Bailey, and completing the top 10. It was the winner of Group GTC, car number 247, which is Lucky Kira. 11th was 9, Warren Gilbert. 12th place was number 44, Steve Ruston. 13th place was number 4, Mark Sampson, off the back of the grid in the car that, as we say, he only drove over the lunch break for the first time. In 14th place was 38, which was Sasha Kakid at the wheel of the Mark II V8, which is the Mustang-bodied car, and 15th place is the number 13 car, which was James Webb. The other class winner to pick out, the winner of Group GTH, car number 39, James Kell, who won that by only a couple of seconds in the end from the number 50 car, for which we never quite got the starting driver. James Wallace and Sam Mayer-Lochnan sharing that particular car. So that is the GT Cup cars heading back into the pit lane area. Michelle, I don't think is going to be able to pick up on any interviews from down there, from what I was hearing in my ear. I think that was what I heard a few moments ago, that we won't be able to pick up on any interviews. Well, we're going to have a go. We're going to try and pick up on some interviews down there with Michelle in the pit lane for what was another fantastic race, Mo. We might be handing down to Michelle any second now, but good racing again. A couple of safety car interruptions, but we got there in the end, and the racing was good.
Definitely. You know, it was almost like a little mini sprint race at the end after the safety cars, and everyone got into their rhythm and found their space in the track, which is exactly what you want. You know, the chaos at the start, it all settles down eventually. It'll never last, you know, through the entire race. On the rare occasion it does, but it was great to see that everyone found their place on the track, got into a rhythm, got into their kind of, you know, their gaggle of cars and their pack of cars that were of a similar pace, and were able to race hard. And you know, once again, it's great to see the GT3s really pushing at the front end of the field. It's always exciting to watch the races in GT Cup.
Always exciting, and this is only 3 races that we've had so far. You think there are, 26 rounds to the championship, because we race 4 times most weekends. The only time that we don't race 4 times is the single race day meeting that we have at Alton Park on the 9th of July, where we have 2 40-minute pit stop races there on that one. But all the rest of them, it's the same format as you will have seen if you've tuned in all weekend. A 25-minute sprint race each day. Later on in the day, it's a 50-minute pit stop race. We do that Saturday, we do that Sunday as well. So it's a busy old calendar that's coming ahead. We can see the cars being pushed back into their garages. Such is the entry list this weekend. The new cafe and restaurant that was opened up at Donington Park is called Garage 39, which means there are 38 garages here at Donington Park. Well, we've got 35 cars out today, and there were 36 prior to the withdrawal of one. There were another couple of cars we should have seen. So had everybody been here that we were originally expecting, we were expecting all of the cars. I think we can probably hand downstairs to Michelle very shortly, who is going to catch up with 1 or 2 drivers, hopefully, from what was an intriguing first sprint race for the GT Cup Championship. So
What a brilliant start. It's a shame the safety car had to come out, but it is what it is. But I tell you what, Simon Orange is going to be thrilled to bits with his performance in that race. Of course, Ian Lodgy still doing a fantastic job as well, our newbie to the GT Cup. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed the first race of the day. Of course, there's plenty more still to come here at GT Cup, because we've got another one live for you this afternoon. We're going to be doing the pit stop race. It's coming up at 3:50. Now, of course, that is subject to change depending on other races and what happens here at Donington. The best thing to do is to keep up to date with everything on the social media. So you can find GT Cup on Facebook, there's the Instagram, there's loads of stories on there, and of course you can watch it live on YouTube and on Facebook as well. But I think for now, I'll just get that double checked, but I think we are clear for this race. So from Donington, for now, it's goodbye, but we'll see you very soon.